As an accountant, I've done quite a lot of running. Mostly running late, running out of money to pay my rent, or running to catch a train. So after a decade of running, I still want the big city job. Just fine as the big city.
Have an idea? You know, I've been investing for a while.
From insurance to wealth.
It's all yours now.
And retirement, we can help solve life's financial puzzles.
You're gonna do great.
Making it click? It takes Aviva.
They took a job
I'll become a Pan Am stewardess.
I get to see the world.
that made them stand out.
Did you just fly in here on a helicopter?
I like to make an entrance.
They're a new breed of woman.
Pan Am, available now on ITVX.
As I was trying to find the identities of these victims, I became pretty obsessed with this case. The first barrel contained skeletonized remains of an adult female and a young child. The second barrel contained 2 young girls. They just deserve names. They should not be nameless. I was sitting on my couch in my living room as I'm researching. That's when everything clicked. There were a few posts that stood out to me. A young woman that had disappeared, and there was a family member looking for her. I'm contacting her because I know that this is them. This is them. There's no way it's not them. Everything matches. And I'm like, this woman's gonna think I am a complete loon. Well, what can I lose? And within 7 minutes, she responds back, "You've got my heart pounding." And I'm like, oh my God. My hands started like shaking uncontrollably. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. My name is Rebecca Heath, and I am a research librarian during the day. And by night, I like to look into true crime. Up until high school, I would spend a lot of times in the library. I think my personality as it is, I'm just inquisitive and just love to dig into things. I love to find pieces of furniture that someone might think was trash and make it look fancy and new again, make somebody want it again. I had a very traumatic childhood. I craved a family. I craved belonging. These Jane Doe cases I researched are all nameless victims who belong somewhere. Bear Brook was the first case that I started looking into. The year was about 2010. There was a part of me that really truly wanted to believe that I was like a kidnapped kid, that I truly had a family that loved me and wanted me in their lives. And so I started searching missing girl, November 1985. And that is when the story popped up. November 10th, 1985. 3 days before I was born, the first barrel was found in New Hampshire. The first barrel contained skeletonized remains of an adult female and a young child, which they assumed was likely the mother and daughter. The victims had died from blunt force trauma. They had also been dismembered and placed into the barrels. The descriptions of the victims just did not match anyone that was missing. So they did not know who they were at that point. Back in 1985, they had done door-to-door interviews, and Each person they asked knew nothing. It was just such a mystery. How did they end up there? "15 years later, the second barrel was found on the same property. The second barrel contained 2 young girls. They were also skeletonized and wrapped in plastic. Now we have 4 victims. They exhumed the 2 victims from the first barrel found back in 1985 and compare the DNA to the second barrel's victims. They found out there was a maternal match between the victims in the first barrel, the adult female and the oldest child, and in the second barrel, the youngest girl, assuming that they were a mother and 2 daughters. The third little girl, who was in the second barrel, had no relation whatsoever to them. They still remained unidentified. We just want to eat? Jane Doe cases specifically do resonate with me because I do see a version of myself in these Jane Does. I was raised in a religious cult, in a home that was not very loving. My environment at home, it was so toxic. So many people were just so miserable. I remember even as a kid just wondering, like, what is it like to be loved? Like, what is it like to be happy? I needed some way out. And they're like, well, you need to make a choice. It's us or the world. I was like, well, okay, I choose the world. As I was leaving, I remember trembling, being scared, because I didn't know anyone. And there's so many times I just wonder, like, how did I not somehow come down the path of somebody that was just so evil and could make me disappear and no one would come looking for me? I think that's kind of really what drives me. I became pretty obsessed with this case. It was hard for me to let it go. I started making it my mission to try and find a little clue that could help tie this case together and give these victims back their names. If I am in an obsessive mood, there's something that just won't let me stop. I could easily spend at least 6 hours outside of work a day, and then weekends, as soon as I wake up till I go to bed, I could just constantly I just gotta keep going. It's like one step closer, one step closer. I generally search the Doe Network, and I also like to use NamUs, which is a website that compiles unidentified individuals, and I just try and put myself in the perspective of a family member and see if I can find any people that are looking for their loved ones. If I was looking to find a loved one in approximately late 70s, 80s, where would I go? So I started going into newspaper archives through classified ads. People a lot of times would post looking for family members there. I also thought about what if they started looking for them right when the internet started? Where would they start looking? So Ancestry has a message board where you could look for missing loved ones. I would use keywords to search. Sister, daughter, I start compiling potential matches. And if I found out that they are alive, then they'd be ruled out. So on Facebook, there was a group that followed the case. So if somebody posted something and someone posed a question, you know, we might interact with each other in the comments section of the post. People would comment about the case and say, why is nobody looking for them? Like, how could you just let someone go? And to me, it wasn't that there wasn't anyone looking. It was, how do we find those people that are looking for them? And that's how I got in touch with Rhonda and Scott.
I grew up in southern New Hampshire, about 45 minutes from Allenstown. In 2011, I came to this case, and it said that a woman and 3 little girls were found out here in a barrel in the woods in Allenstown. That really bothered me, that not only had someone killed them, but that somebody had actually robbed them of their names as well, and that they'd gone unidentified. Why wasn't there a huge outcry in New Hampshire, in New England, about their disappearance? And so I decided, I think I want to go down and see the area where they were found. I asked my siblings if any of them would go with me.
Early on in the case, that was kind of hard for me to understand, how can what we thought was a mother and her 3 kids go missing and no one seems to be looking for the suspect.
I wanted to lay eyes on the property where they were found just to kind of get some own answers for myself.
It felt like a puzzle, and you've got all of these pieces. Just put them together. Like how, I don't know, it just seemed like such a solvable case. I feel like they are me. They just deserve names. They should not be nameless. They need someone to fight for them, and I'm willing to do that.
Your Just Clean bathroom smells great. At least until the next flush. Better use Febreze bathroom. Just flip to activate. No batteries or electricity needed. Febreze bathroom is a unique liquid diffuser that constantly fights odors and freshens for up to 50 days. Then, flip a new one. Enjoy Just Clean freshness feeling for longer with Febreze bathroom. Febreze, breathe happy.
Research, refine, repeat. All to let you shine the way you are. Colgate Max White Ultimate. Unlike regular toothpaste, its unique formula deeply whitens for 10 times whiter teeth. So however you smile, you feel perfect. Colgate Max White Ultimate deeply whitens for 10 times whiter teeth. And try Colgate's Max White Overnight Whitening Serum, a patented serum with a professional whitening ingredient that works while you sleep to reverse 15 years of stains.
There's dancing behind movie scenes, behind those movie scenes. And dancing behind movie scenes, behind those movie screens. Ashley Bosley, she's the one who keeps the dream alive.
Do we really need another computer? Not everyone does. But if you're reinventing music, tracking migrations in remote places, or getting others to see your vision, then a Copilot Plus PC will make a real difference. A powerful AI computer is not for everyone, but if you're trying to change the world, even if just your own, we built one for you.
We're Ren, the home of renovations. Here you can get up to 60% off fully built kitchen units and up to 7 years interest-free credit. Plus, in our famous winter sale, get an AEG dishwasher for just $149. This is luxury for all, affordable for all. This is the Great Renovation.
What are you looking for?
Something for you.
You're not going to find it.
Boss, come and help me.
I can't.
What took you so long? You.
The Shepherds are back. Expect fun, fiascos, and family drama.
There's about 20 geezers after me.
He can't help him.
Brand new Billy and Greg The Family Diaries, available now on ITVX.
I am on my way to meet up with Rhonda and Scott. It's been about 3 years since we last got together. I think one main purpose was that in these Facebook groups, we truly cared about the victims, and if we could all come together and find some answers, that's really what mattered the most.
Interesting meeting Rebecca. She really does know herself. She's know the case, and she's a great researcher. Both Rhonda and I grew up 10 miles outside of Manchester, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
But we moved out of the area 2 years ago, so I probably haven't been back for 2 years.
I think it was last fall was the last time I went up to the park and to the property, follow up on loose ends. It's like a never-ending project for Scott and I. I had been doing a lot of adoption searches for people. I like research. I'm kind of a history buff. In 2011, my kids grew up and left home, and I think it was a little bit of an empty nest moment where I just wanted to find something to research that was a little bit different than I'd been doing for years. And I came to this case, and there were 4 victims put in barrels out here in the woods. I couldn't believe that could be true.
It was an extensive amount of work that Scott and Rhonda put into trying to identify who the perpetrator was and how he was connected to the case. They had the same push and drive that I did. My mission was to try and find the identities of these victims. Rhonda and Scott had been just trying to go head first and find a suspect for the murders.
Right in this area here is where the first barrel was found in 1985.
It was found by a couple hunters, brothers who were out here. And at that time, you could look over into the mobile home park and you could see the various mobile homes. You could see the path where people walked their dogs.
You know, we figured that everybody in the neighborhood had been spoken to. You know, questions been asked.
Many, many, many people told us they waited for the police to come and ask questions, and nobody ever did. Very shortly after they were found, the investigation was taken out of the hands of the local police and turned over to the New Hampshire State Police. And in a lot of people's minds, that's where the investigation fell apart. So finally, we just said, all right, we're just a brother and sister. We grew up in New Hampshire, and, you know, we believe this case can be solved. We know it can, and we just need to ask the right questions to find out. 2 things became very apparent. Nobody knew the little girls were found, almost nobody in the mobile home park. And you could just throw a rock over there practically. And the second thing was that we needed to focus on this property and the men who lived here, because why would you risk coming down here, down a private driveway, in sight of a mobile home park, dumping bodies? Likely, this person who placed them here was familiar with the property. We heard all kinds of stories, like there was a family with kids, they moved away. We'd be like, who are they? And they didn't even know. So then we began thinking, well, maybe they could have lived here. One theory being that whoever did this was what they call a family annihilator. You know, an individual who just exploded one day, killed his family, took off for parts unknown. Maybe a family in the mobile home park befriended the girls if they had stayed on the property.
One of the biggest things we did was to recreate the trailer park, try to identify all the residents that lived there and contact them.
Out of the 10 families that lived there in 1985 that also lived there in 2000, only 1 family knew that the little girls had been found, and clearly they didn't talk to their neighbors about it. None of the other families, I mean, we felt like we're having to prove, you know, pull out the composites and show them.
I know at some point people began wondering if there was a serial killer that was loose.
To go after the suspect every weekend, every evening, we're traveling all over New England talking to people. It was all consuming. I always kept coming back to one thing: there's somebody. They belong to somebody, and somebody is missing them. They had families, and we'd like to see justice served for them.
I mean, it took quite a while just going door to door. You know, we come back over and over again sometimes, or people just refused to speak to us, so we just said, you know, we realize us showing up at your door on Saturday morning is awkward, but so are dead little girls. And we just wouldn't take no for an answer.
Use the right two lanes to keep right to Elm Street, downtown, the Milliard.
Rhonda and Scott had a blog going a couple of years before I started proactively searching for answers. But in the beginning, I mean, I was alone. I had nobody at all. My research process is just kind of like scattered all over the place. I'm dyslexic, and for the longest time, I couldn't do normal things that everyone else could the same way everyone else could, and I couldn't learn the same way, and it used to frustrate me so much. But it really, truly taught me to think outside the box. There was one specific post that was posted on Ancestry, and it was from 1999. It was family members looking for Sarah McWaters, a child born in 1977 in California. She was missing with her mother, Marlise. Sarah had a half-sister, Marie Vaughn, who was also missing. So as I'm looking into it, the dates are all lining up. The equation already is lining up of the victims found in the barrels. There's 2 girls and there's an adult female. But the more I looked into that case, I really couldn't find enough information to confirm or to rule it out. All I can think of is like, how do I find who you are? Where else can I look? What angle am I not looking at? There's got to be someone out there that's looking. It just absolutely has to be.
We wanted to find out who lived in the mobile home park. We got aerial photos from late 70s.
And we just started piecing together who lived where. Then I made a Facebook page and a blog.
I had come across the blog before. I know I would reference the list of names of people that lived there.
And during this time, we were having some conversations with a property owner. I think Rhonda asked him, you know, well, do you have any idea who could have done this? And he says, well, I have somebody that I wondered about, but I don't want to say anything bad about him.
And that sent us down.
This was 3 years after having many conversations with him where he said he didn't know anything.
He's the guy that would know everything.
Yep, yep.
Rhonda was on the phone with him, and she was asking about a particular group of people, and he got frustrated and said, no, you're barking up the wrong tree. The person you want to look at is Bobby Evans. And we said, why? And he said, well, he was a strange guy, and he dumped trash on my property.
And that's when you pretty much moved into the Manchester Library.
So we looked up everything we could find, you know, about a Bob Evans.
We heard he was an electrician. Then we began to ask people, do you recall an electrician being in the area named Bob Evans? What was your interest, you know, what was your interaction with him? And we did find people who knew him. This clearing area over here is where the Bear Brook store was. Bob Evans was an electrician, so he helped work on the store in the cooling and refrigeration part of it. One family's recollection is that he was living with a family here on the property in a pop-up camper, and it was around Christmas time, and the family felt bad that there were kids here, and they sent over some of their adult children with food for the family. What we don't know is whether these little girls were the victims. They're sure it was Evans because they knew him. They worked with him at the Wambeck Mill. So we know that he was on this property for some time anyway. We just tried to collect stories in case there was any clue, but we could never find him, you know. So after 6 months of looking into it ourselves, you know, we turned it over to the New Hampshire State Police.
They probably just thought, oh, it's another name that Ron and Scott are giving us. That name didn't mean anything to anyone. It kind of went cold for us, but that name was always in the back of our head.
My name is Jeff Strelzen. I'm a Senior Assistant Attorney General at the New Hampshire Attorney General's office.
There was going to be a press release because, you know, there's a big break in the case. I'm at my desk at work. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna need to see this press release. So I get like my phone and my headphones, listening in. I'm like, okay, well, what's the break? What's the break? What's the break?
We believe we have our killer of the Allenstown victims. We're confident that Bob Evans is the person who killed the 4 victims in Allenstown.
The New Hampshire State Police have said that the name Bob Evans first came up in 2014 in our research. It was pretty exciting.
At that time, I didn't know Rhonda and Scott had researched Bob Evans. He had a beard and like a plaid shirt and these piercing blue eyes. It really kind of came as a shock. He had many other victims besides just the victims that were in the barrels. When New Hampshire State Police had confirmed Bob Evans as the Bear Brook killer, he had already been incarcerated for an unrelated murder in California. They uncovered that he had also kidnapped a baby girl from New Hampshire in 1981, and he had abandoned her in California. Even though this baby girl was not one of the victims in the Bear Brook barrels, she had disappeared not too far from Allenstown, where Bear Brook State Park is located. Once they had the connection of this perpetrator, Bob Evans, in the area of the Bear Brook murders, police tried testing the DNA of this perpetrator, Bob Evans, against the DNA of the victims found in the barrels. The DNA test showed Bob Evans as the biological father of the middle child.
Hey, Dad? I have an idea. You know, I've been investing for a while.
From insurance to wealth.
It's all yours now.
And retirement, we can help solve life's financial puzzles.
You're gonna do great.
Making it click? It takes Aviva.
Sweat and tears, vital parts of life. Sweat cools us down when things get heated. And tears free our feelings into the world. So for the twists and turns of life, don't just hydrate your body. Hydrate your mind.
Turn that resistance up. Give me what you can.
That was lit. To just hold it here, team, and breathe. Let's hustle hard. Let's get it.
Nice work. Smashing it over there.
Ah, half-price breakfast. Well, brunch, technically. Half-price hairdo. Strong fringe. And half-price movie. No spoilers, Poppy.
Scottish Power's half-price weekends means 50% off your electricity every Saturday and Sunday between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m.
Half-price beef, Bruce? Not for me, thanks. I'm more of a greens guy.
Find out how much Scottish Power can save you.
When you order restaurant food with Deliveroo Plus Gold, you get 10% credit back, which collects in your app so you can spend more on what you love. Genius. Sign up and start living that Plus life. Deliveroo Plus Gold. Now, just got even better.
You're giving me magic. When you give me love, when you give me happiness, you're giving me magic.
Gift that Tilbury feeling. Shop perfect gifts now at charlottetilbury.com.
We're making some magic.
We believe that Bob Evans' killing finally came to an end in California in 2002 with his last victim, Yoon Sung Jun. He certainly fits the profile of a serial killer.
Ms. June had been murdered, dismembered, and was buried in the basement of her residence.
Which I find so shocking.
Bob Evans was caught and put in prison in California for his last murder, 17 years after the first Bear Brook victims were discovered.
Evans was eventually charged with murder. He pled guilty in 2003, and in 2010, he died in prison of natural causes.
By the time New Hampshire State Police determined that Evans was the Bear Brook killer, he had been deceased for 6 years. DNA saved from his autopsy confirmed he was father of one of the victims.
What stuck with me the most from the press release was that the victim, the little girl that no one seemed to be related to, was Bob Evans' daughter. For some reason, I envisioned her with like little pigtails and holding her dad's hand and walking through the woods. And she was like 3 years old. She was like such a tiny little innocent baby. Like, what the hell? She had no idea that when she was in a car ride with him driving up here, that was gonna be the last location she ever visited. Now we have a suspect named, and the victims are still unidentified. When in general, you have the victims identified, and then that's how you find the suspect. It was the opposite in this case. This just opened a whole plethora of opportunities. With this information, I can start tracking his locations, searching for the identities of the victims. And at that point, I assumed that the adult female with her 2 children could have been living in the same property with Bob Evans and Evans' daughter. So they don't really know a lot about Bob Evans' locations. Knew he had one specific address that links to him. That's the known address. No one else is listed with him, although he claimed to have a wife that resided at that residence as well. $925 right in the back. The girls would have lived there too. The neighbors that used to live there within those years did not recognize his photo at all. We'd imagine someone would remember 3 little girls. Rhonda, Scott, and I came here to visit Bob Evans' office. He was hired to work here to manage the team that essentially broke the factory down. They would fill oil drums or barrels and dump them. And one of the places that they would dump them was at Bear Brook State Park, where the barrels were found. Logically, they were here at some point in this town. So when I come here, it's hard not to feel like you're reliving the moment when the girls were here. Unfortunately, even contacting neighbors in the surrounding areas, employees that worked at Wambach when he worked there, nobody seems to know anything about his life. When working at Wambach Mills, there was one room that he left locked all the time. It wouldn't allow anyone to go into. What was in that room? Could he have been holding the barrels there? Found myself questioning what other angle can you possibly look at? Disappointment once again. These little girls and their mother were just nameless. I have not seen my family in a number of years. Once you leave one of these religious communities, like I was raised in, you're just ostracized. Each person told me, if I leave, you're gonna die, you're going to hell, you're never gonna make it.
guess, if anything, it made me push and dig even further. I had been looking for the victims. About 7 months, then there's an update in the case.
The man known in New Hampshire as Bob Evans, that man's real name was Terry Rasmussen.
Now, the suspect, who they believe to be Bob Evans, is actually just an alias. His true name is Terry Peter Rasmussen.
Law enforcement used DNA from his autopsy and was able to build a family tree and figure out who he was and confirmed it with DNA from his son. The identification of Terry Rasmussen was the first time a killer had been identified using genetic genealogy.
So now with this information, I know his true identity. There's so many things attached to your actual birth name within public records. Terry Rasmussen, that's not a common name, so you don't get as many hits as you do when you're searching for Bob Evans, because let me tell you, that's an endless search. So at least it was narrowed down quite a bit more. Terry Rasmussen actually was previously married, and he had 4 living children, which really poses the question, was he leading 2 lives? He's got this biological daughter that we've assumed he killed and placed in a barrel. I started searching anything relating to Rasmussen that might lead to the identity of the victims. It had been a year since the press release. There was a podcast coming out that was going to focus on the Bear Brook murders.
This is Bear Brook. I'm Jason Moon.
I immediately started listening to it, trying to just grasp any more additional information that perhaps I didn't know about the case at this point. This story grabbed the attention of more people. It showed the magnitude that this case really is. When I was listening to the 3rd or 4th episode, that's when everything clicked.
The release of the isotope testing results was, in some ways, the final Hail Mary in the Bear Brook case.
This specific episode focused on isotope testing that was conducted on the victims.
Living things carry an imprint of their environment recorded in isotopes.
It's like your body is coding everything that you've ingested over time.
Radioisotope testing in the bones, teeth, and hair of the victims can offer one of the first real clues about where the Bear Brook victims came from.
But they did tell with the adult female that she was possibly from California or surrounding states.
The map for the related victims includes parts of the West Coast.
As soon as I heard that, I remembered that one specific post on Ancestry message board. That Ancestry post from 1999 with Sarah McWater's family looking for her. A child born in 1977 who disappeared in California. And I'm like, pause the podcast, rewind it back, and I listened to it over again.
Parts of the West Coast.
And as I'm listening, I'm like, I don't know. I really think that could be them. Sarah McWaters could be one of the victims. She could have been one of the 2 daughters that were related to the adult female. I'm gonna contact that woman who posted in 1999. I'm contacting her because I know that this is them. This is them. There's no way it's not them. Everything matches. There's just no way. And I'm like, all right, how am I gonna contact her? I'm like, that's probably a broken email address. That's from 1999. I'm gonna find her on Facebook. So I'm like looking through and I find the person's name. I'm like, all right. Hey, just wondering, are you the same person that posted an Ancestry message board post from 1999 looking for Sarah McWaters? And I'm like, this woman's gonna think I am a complete loon. Well, what can I lose?
And say within 7 minutes, she responds back, yeah, it is, it's me. You've got my heart pounding. Oh, okay, I'm just wondering if I could help you find her. Then she starts just giving me like little tidbits on Marlies. Marlies had 2 daughters, Sarah McWaters and Marie Vaughn. And she goes, oh yeah, and oh, by the way, we believe that she ran off with a guy and his name was Rasmussen. And I'm like, oh my God. My hands started like shaking uncontrollably. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'm like trying to type, I'm like, oh my God. It's really them, it's really them, it's them, it's them, it's them.
We're not wishing the days away this Christmas. We're cozy up in, countdown in, pit kidding, stocking stuffing, get together in, and mood lighting. Shop Christmas at notonthehighstreet.com.
Bacteria causes plaque in your mouth and along the gum line. Try new Colgate Total Plaque Pro Release. Its precision foam technology helps dissolve and lift away gum-harming plaque 3 times more effectively. For whole mouth superior protection, new Colgate Total Plaque Pro Release from the #1 brand recommended by dentists.
There's dancing behind movie scenes, behind those movie scenes. And dancing behind movie scenes, behind those movie screens. Ashley Bosley, she's the one who keeps the dream alive.
Activia presents Happy Gut, Happy You in 1, 2, 3. 1. Helps digestive well-being, feeling fine. 2. Daily nutrients, gut aligned. 3. Energy support, so divine. Activia contains an exclusive mix of live cultures, plus calcium which supports the gut. Your gut is where it all begins. Activia.
In the wilderness, fearless and human. Sauvage, eau forte, the new parfum, Dior.
No, I do. I genuinely want to.
I don't think you got any clues to who you're stealing from, that's all.
I when you shave it encourages the air. I was so embarrassed.
I'm a thief. First thing you noticed when I walked in.
Something is not right in general in this town.
Why is the law allowed to treat people like this?
What is a weekend?
Go premium on ITVX. Never-ending entertainment, ad-free and downloadable for $5.99 per month. Start your free trial today.
It was so shocking. I could not believe that I found out the identification of the victims. And now I'm trying to process, like, oh my God, they're gonna be identified. They're gonna be identified, it's them. So the next day, I contacted Detective Headley in California. I'm like, I think I have a credible tip. There's 2 girls, Sarah McWaters and Marie Vaughn. There were half-sisters missing with their mother, Marlies Honeychurch, in California. Like, I'm sure you get this all the time, but I really, 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 really believe that this is the victims of the Bear Brook murders. Marlies Honeychurch disappeared with a guy with the last name Rasmussen. And they're like, so what's your relation to this case? Just a hobby. I look into these cases. And I think he was a little skeptical at first, but then slowly warmed up to the idea that a member of the public could offer a tip. The next day, Sarah McWaters' family was up in New Hampshire getting their DNA test against the victims. After the family members had their DNA tested, we waited and waited and waited for what seemed like forever.
Come on. Come.
Marlies' family had mixed feelings. They believed that it likely was her. and that it was the children. But at the same time, they were still hoping it wasn't her. They were hoping that, she had just moved on and was living a fulfilled life.
When I heard that she found the family, of course, Scott and I were dying to know, what she had learned, but I didn't want to just be obnoxious, and I knew that maybe she wouldn't want to say anything publicly until she found out more, so it was just kind of a waiting game on our end, too.
7 months later, there was a press release identifying 3 of the victims.
After a lot of hard work by many people, we've identified 3 of the Allenstown murder victims. The mother has been identified as Marlise Elizabeth Honeychurch. This is Marlise's oldest daughter, Marie Elizabeth Vaughn. This is Sarah Lynn McWaters, the youngest murder victim.
You started to learn a little bit about these people that you've been trying to identify for all those years, and now they had faces, they had names, they had families, and that's when I think there was a lot of sadness at that point. They had kind of become our family because nobody else was advocating for them, and it kind of took them on as our family, and I didn't realize that till afterwards. Unfortunately, there's always going to be questions that we will never get answers to, and I think that's always going to haunt us. I know there was years that nobody knows where he was, and most likely there are more victims.
Did you go to the funeral?
Yes, Rhonda and I went to the funeral, and we got a chance to meet Marlise's siblings.
We as a family would like to thank the community. Although this moment is bittersweet, they have their names back on this day. They can rest in peace.
I believe it's just a matter of time before Rasmussen's biological daughter is fully identified.
There is also a picture of a birthday party that Rasmussen's daughter may have attended. If the right person saw the picture and came forward, then perhaps she could get identified. Really, it's an appeal to the public. If her composite looks familiar, or if the circumstances of her life seem familiar, it would be really helpful if the public could submit tips about who she might be.
The case kind of solidifies for me that I truly made right decisions when I left the community I was raised in, because I felt that I was meant to do more in life. And as I was trying to find the identities of these victims and these girls, I truly found my own identity. And that was something that was just so unexpected. I am still working on this case. The last middle child is still unidentified, and I cannot let her go.
Are you okay?
I was getting really mad that she's not identified. I thought by the next time I'd come back, she'd be identified. This doesn't feel fair to her. She deserves her own name. She deserves to have her own identity rather than the daughter of a serial killer. And I will continue that search until they find out who she is.
Racers, slayers, ballers, side questers. The EE Game Store has kit for every type of gamer on any network.
This is ITV Kaching, the discount fee. It's a fast, free way to save effortlessly on your online shop tip. From last-minute discounts on holidays to sneaky saving from the biggest brands on the high street. And with ITV Kaching, you don't find the discounts find you. And if you're looking for unmissable deals of gifts this Christmas, let us do the legwork for you. So put your feet up and start saving effortlessly. ITV Kaching, the discount fee. Install now in time for Christmas.
There's the hard way to keep odours under control and get the fragrance you want.
Or there's the Airwick way. 24/7 Active Fresh Auto Spray reduces odours and gives you an amazing fragrance, infused with essential oils that's aerosol-free, with 95% naturally derived ingredients to leave your home feeling fresh for up to 70 days. Now that's a breath of fresh Airwick. And now create your winter wonderland with festive fragrances.